I'm Lindsay.
And this is the Game Forum's first impressions of Ghost of Tsushima.
So as usual with our first impressions, we can only play the game for 2 hours and can't talk to each other until this video. So that being said, Zach, what do you think about this game?
Okay, so one of my favorite style of game is open world, and preferably games like Assassin's Creed. That's kind of like my go-to. It's a huge open world checklist design. The map fills in with all these icons, and you can clear them out. Really fun and rewarding gameplay loop, progression system. The one thing that Assassin's Creed lacks in is a really compelling narrative or like a story or a plot. The 2 hours that I played in Ghost of Tsushima, I feel like it hit every single mark, ironically, and including the narrative and compelling storytelling, and it pretty much like far exceeded my expectations for all of those. And I have to say that opening hour is one of the best openings to a video game that I've ever played. From the moment it starts to the
Yes.
moment the title screen hits, I was just like completely blown away. And I think just with these first impressions, like how I felt, if it were to keep going, just based off of the 2 hours that I've played, I totally see this being my personal game of the year. It's just like the story is there. It is the most, not just graphically pretty, but it is like artistically beautiful. The world design in this is just insane. The amount of noise, I guess is the lack of a better word, that you see on the screen at any given time, yet you have no heads up display. It'll pop up during combat, but when once you put that sword back in, which is a super cool mechanic, it goes back to having nothing there. And just the first 2 hours, you experience like the wind mechanic. That is a way for you to navigate, but yet it's a artistic design in the environment. The birds that will fly or the fox that you see are just, those are gameplay segments, but they're hidden behind, they're just part of the environment. The birds you see flying, like, oh, it's a pretty bird. Oh, wait, no, that I can follow that to go to something interesting. And I've never seen that in a video game before. I had very low expectations going into this, and I think that benefited it completely. But what do you feel like? How do you feel about this game?
So I have to completely agree with you on this one.
Awesome.
I was like somewhat interested in this game. I was like, I really enjoyed Red Dead. I like some of the open world games. I was like, okay, this one's set in like feudal Japan. I have an interest in feudal Japan. I think this will be a cool game. But I wasn't really expecting them to change up as much stuff and hit as hard with the story as I was, I was kind of setting the bar. Like, it's going to be pretty much a reskin of Red Dead, and I go
Yeah.
around and collect stuff, and it'll be open world, and it'll be fun. But, oh my God, though, like, yeah, that first hour, I remember playing through all of that and being like, man, my time's got to be almost up. And looking at it and going, oh my God, like, it's only been like a little over 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just they do so much. So yeah, they just cram so much into such a short amount of time. It just feels like it's way longer. And then once it finally lets you out on your own, you kind of start exploring the area, and everything feels way more natural than just a video game.
Yeah.
Like the concept of following the wind, I found really cool. It's a unique mechanic I haven't really seen, because it's not like, okay, follow this path or follow this arrow, but it still kind of is. It just feels like it lends itself to that game and that mechanic so perfectly. And then, like you said, like following the birds and the foxes, like it feels like you're in a historical game, almost through the lens of like mythology or something. It's a strange kind of mashup that really works for what they're doing here. being able to go through and come across a little village and then, help defeat some of the Mongols and then talk to the villagers. And I remember the first place I went to was the Golden Temple, because I remember them saying that there was going to be some survivors there, and I saw it on the map, and I was kind of halfway in between that and halfway in between like the first, or I guess the next story mission once it opens up.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to go over there and do a little exploring first. I don't want to just keep jumping into the story. I want to see what the rest of the game will look like. And it's like I get there and I'm in this like broken armor and like, I don't have hardly anything. I just started the game. And there's all these people grouped together and huddled there. And I see they have like different shops and stuff. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, part of me is kind of going, okay, so they got all this stuff here. And this is where I'm going to have to like go and, spend upgrade points to get stuff. And I'm like, why can't they just give me stuff? I'm literally like the last hope for their whole thing. And it's kind of the cynical part of me that kind of picks apart games.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few games where I have to like almost immediately retract what I'm thinking, because you go up and they're like, oh, if you find better armor, I can repair it, but this one's too far gone. I wish I could do something for you.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next person and they're like, I will gladly make your sword even better, but I have nothing to work with. I just left and my family died.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next one, and it's like, I would gladly repair your bow, but I have no bow to give you. And then, like, you go to this other thing, and they're like, we've grouped what little we have to give you these offerings to help you on your quest. And I'm like, oh, wow. I'm
Yeah.
like, I totally read this the wrong way. And they totally played the absolute perfect hand for what that area should be to make it function as a game and also have it function as a story. And especially coming off The Last of Us Part 2, this is almost like Whiplash, because I feel like
Yes.
The Last of Us Part 2 changed everything in the story in the game to try and make it fit what they wanted to do. And here it's like they're changing the game mechanics to better fit the story.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my God, this is like so perfect. And just a little bit I've played in that 2 hours, I mean, I would have to say this might be in the running for my game of the year as well.
Yeah.
It's not normally the kind of game that I would rank that high,
Yeah.
but it is like so near perfectly done what I've played of it so far. Like I said, that moment was one of those things where I'm like, and this is going to take me out of the world and it's going to go against what everything's already showing, but it didn't. It like went out of its way to show you they have nothing and they still give you a little bit because they want to help you. I'm like, oh wow, that's not what I was expecting. And it's like it's so good graphically, but it's not really trying to be like 100% authentic. It's like dialed a little bit into like almost like surreal mysticism or something.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't know. It's very well done. It's a very unique art style that really fits with what they're going for.
Yeah. It's like a very serious fantasy setting. The concept that's what's happening, with the Mongols invading and like just the absolute carnage you see at the beginning of the game. It's cool because it kind of like it's so crazy, but then you look in the environments and it's just absolutely stunning. One thing that I noticed and I cannot wait to play further is, Jin Sakai is a samurai and they're bound by honor, and you have the option to stand off with enemies, and so you don't have to, but you can. They give you the option, which I enjoy doing. It feels cool doing. It's just very cinematic, and it's an easy way to kind of kill some of the enemies before you actually do the full combat. But with oops, excuse me. But with the combat and the abilities, they are very samurai focused. But I've noticed if you look through like the techniques, the menus, you can see that there's further progression that is kind of similar to the Ghost, kind of like you get new
Mm.
tools, the assassinations, like different stuff like that.
So
And
how far did you get in the story?
So I did the mission that unlocks with Kuna,
Mm-hmm.
the girl you meet with in the prologue. I did one mission with her, and then I found um, Sensei Ishikawa. He had a
The
predecessor.
archer.
Yeah, and I did a mission with him, and then I just like went exploring and found a whole bunch of places. I found a settlement kind of in the southwest area that is like this huge town, and I mean like insanely huge, and it is just filled with Mongols, and I couldn't like I couldn't survive. I had to get out of there because they were just so overwhelming, and they were like there was the spear ones, but there's also like these huge like hulking samurai with armor that you have to like dodge and chip off and stuff, and it was a little too complicated for me, like still learning the combat.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the combat though?
I was expecting something more similar to like For Honor from the trailers. The combat system's a little bit more simplistic than I thought it would be, but it looks like you get to add more layers on as you level up.
Yeah,
Because as I started looking through the level up system, it starts giving you other thing. So it looks like it starts off fairly simple, and then it keeps adding on harder and harder layers of mechanics. And I really liked the tutorial for the combat system. Essentially, you get to have a flashback of learning how the combat works with your uncle using wooden swords, and you're like a
yeah,
kid. I'm like, okay, this is a great flashback. A, it looks great. B, it helps you connect to the characters better. And then C, it still is a tutorial. It's not like you're a battle hardened warrior who all of a sudden has to remember how to use his sword in the middle of combat again. So again, it the mechanics fit so well to the story. I think that was like beautifully crafted, and that was some of my favorite parts of Last of Us 2. And it's like they kind of took those parts and like used them in this game as well.
yeah, yeah. I agree. You know, unfortunately, we only got a taste of what this game is. I've read some reviews and I've looked into it, from what other people have said, and this is looking like it's a 40 to 50 hour long game,
Oh wow!
and yeah, like this is a pretty huge game, so I'm very excited about that. Now, I have heard some complaints about like the missions get repetitive, it's the same format, but that just I just harken back to like, well, Assassin's Creed, that they have the same repetitive missions. Even something like Borderlands 3 has, you're essentially doing the same thing, but is the gameplay loop fun? Is it rewarding? And I feel like this is kind of the perfect situation because it is going to be constantly rewarding. You have a very interesting customization system that one thing is that I don't like the helmets, but they don't benefit you in any way other than cosmetically. It's the armor that you wear. And
So there's one thing about that cosmetic thing that I think is interesting too.
yeah,
I found another sale or like little merchant point
yeah,
where you can use flowers to like get cosmetic upgrades to your armor to change their colors.
yeah,
So the flowers you can use to be like, okay, I've got this armor. I want to make it black and red. I need to have 10 flowers to color it that way. Or you can get hats and bandanas and stuff like that, or headbands.
yeah.
And I actually followed one of the birds to another spot, and you got to choose how to write a haiku. It gave you like two or three different choices
Oh, that's cool.
each option. So it's like when you start writing it, you're like meditating above this like lake, and your first verses could be like this or that, but you're looking at like either the trees, the shadow, or the lake. And then when you finish, he essentially recites the haiku you just put together, and it gives you like a special unlock. And for this, it was a golden headband. And I kind of wonder if I had said like a different verse, if it would have given me a different object.
That Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I have not done the haiku yet. I found some shrines. I found like one of the hot springs, which I think you have to do that. You find one in one of the first towns you go to, and so I just feel like there's so many different things, but then it's like this is a very video game in sense that like you can instantly call your horse. Um, you can change the weather with your flute, but you have to unlock the ability to do like different types. So if it's storming and you don't want it to storm, you can swipe left on the touchpad. And this is one of the few games that utilizes the touchpad. You know, you swipe up for the wind to blow, and it's just like I feel like it is so innovative and just in a literal game design sense. And then going off of that, you know, you can hit right on the directional pad, and then it pops up the photo mode.
Yeah.
Most games don't do that easily,
No,
and
they definitely wanted a focus
yeah,
on, photo because it is so stylized.
yeah. And one thing I've noticed, even with The Last of Us Part Two as well, when you die, the loading is so fast.
Yes, it is
It's
incredibly
insanely
fast.
fast. I even read an article that Sucker Punch had to go and artificially lengthen the load times because players weren't able to read the tips all the way. So
Oh, wow.
they had to make them longer just to do that. And I'm like,
So,
this
how
is
did they get this to
insane.
work? Because this game loads crazy fast. It's graphically super impressive. It has a huge level, and it's only like 30 gigs. Like, I get it's not quite as big as Red Dead, but Red Dead was like over 100 gigs.
Yeah,
Like,
I
how are they doing all of this? It seems like magic.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and you know, going a little further away, looking at like Sony first party studios with Guerrilla, you know, they made the Killzone games, and then they came out with Horizon Zero Dawn, which was amazing. And then you see Sucker Punch, which came, you know, they had the Infamous games, which I played Infamous One, Infamous Second Son, and then First Light, the expansion to Second Son, and I didn't really care for any of the characters. I didn't care for the story, so when Sucker Punch was like, "Hey, yeah, we're making a samurai game, a very realistic, you know, boots on the ground style, no fantasy samurai game," I was like, this is going to be either really boring or poorly made." And somehow they did it. Like I don't know how. Even the music, like Thursday night, I played Ghost of Tsushima. Friday night at work and Saturday night at work, I've been listening to the soundtrack nonstop on Spotify. It's completely there. All the songs are there. Like just the music, you know, the like with the opening title, like that was mind blowing. The and I won't spoil every, you know, what happens. I mean, I guess it's not really a spoiler, but still, that moment is just so beautiful, and it is like, oh my god, like Sucker Punch, just like I mean, I guess they sucker punched us into, you know, I was not expecting this game to be anything but a mediocre, you know, kind of something similar to Days Gone, just something to play, something to pass the time. But this is like 2 hours in, and I'm already more impressed than the entirety of The Last of Us Part Two.
Yeah, I gotta be right there with you. I feel like this is how I should have felt playing The Last of Us Part 2. I'm already like super interested in this world. I'm super interested in the character. I think like the mechanics of this game are mind-blowing. I feel like every aspect of this game is firing on all cylinders. Now that can change the more we play it,
True.
but I mean for a first impression, this is probably like one of my best first impressions I've done.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I agree.
this is, I mean, I was kind of going into this game thinking like, this might be a 6 or 7, and this seems like an 11 out of 10 so far.
Yeah, just everything like down to the voice acting, the the graphics, like everything about this seems like it was given so much love and care, and it really really shows.
I had a couple other like really cool experiences. Just in my first little bit, I
Yeah,
was following one of the birds to see where it was going, and a guy comes running down the road, and he's like, "Oh, please help me!" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm assuming that this is like a quick event or something like that."
yeah,
So I go to him, and he's like, "The Mongols just attacked my house over the hill there," and it's like, "My family's still back there," and my character's like, "And you left them?" And he's like, well, what was I supposed to do? And he's like, you have no honor, kind of thing. And so I went over there, fought the Mongols, and then it's like start looking for his family, and like you start seeing like blood streaks and stuff, and you end up figuring out like the Mongols killed his family and dumped their bodies in the river, and then like the guy comes back, and you have to tell him like his family died, and then he you essentially tell him like, hey, they may be dead, but you're still alive. You need to like live to honor them and help us fight the Mongols back.
That's so cool.
And there's a big thing with like character growth just in the first little bit too, because that was it the first the first mission you do with her, like breaking the people out of prison,
Yeah,
and you have to kill the guard
yeah,
with a knife. He's like, I don't know if I can do this. This is against my code of honor, and he has a really hard time deciding, am I going to kill this person dishonorably, because he would really like much rather go out there, die honorably, than do something dishonorable.
yeah,
Like it's just like so against his code, and you really start being like, oh man, like up until that point there's literally been like 10 enemies out there, and he'll walk straight up to them and announce himself. Like,
yes.
especially after playing The Last of Us, where it's like, nope, you
Stealth.
gotta hide in a bush
Yeah,
and then, shoot that dog in the face and Molotov that woman and she's yelling and all this stuff. It's like, this is like, no, I refuse. I will do the honorable thing. If I die, then so be it. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is way different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, and narratively, obviously it's called Ghost of Tsushima, and that's the thing that he's building up to. He's going to become the Ghost of Tsushima. So now I am like, I can't wait to see where this goes and what happens, and his journey from honorable samurai to a dishonorable ghost, and it.
Well,
I'm so excited.
I've seen a couple things talking about the game. I haven't seen any spoilers,
Yeah,
but this is like a mechanic in the game.
yeah,
Like in the game, you can choose if you want to be dishonorable and essentially become a ninja and stealth kill everybody and do that, or you can be honorable like the whole game and go through and announce yourself and fight everybody fair and square. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's a hell of a choice.
yeah. This is one hell of a game, and I was not expecting this at all.
No, no, this one really took me by surprise.
Yes.
So anything else you want to add, Zach?
Uh, no. If you are listening to this and you haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, definitely check it out. If you are short on cash due to what's going out in the world, you can only afford maybe 4 games a year. Maybe wait, because Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Cyberpunk are still due out this year, and those are going to be huge bang for your bucks. There's going to be a lot of quality there, a lot of quantity as well. But definitely catch this on a sale. Like, this game needs to be played no matter what, regardless if it's now or 6 months from now when it's on sale. Just keep this on your list. Keep an eye out for it. I highly recommend this to anyone that considers them a fan of open world RPGs.
Yes, I have to. Like I said, this is normally something I'm kind of interested in, but this one is so artfully done. I just can't wait to jump back in and play some more of this game. This game has really exceeded my expectations so far.
Yeah, I agree.
So for anyone else who's played this game, tell us what you think about this game down in the comments below. Until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.